So, hello and welcome to the D365 Insights Podcast brought to you by Source and Connect. Today's episode is a bit of a different one, and I'm really excited to bring on Emma Beckett from the football pitch to tech projects, the Emma Beckett story. Hi, Emma. Welcome so much to the podcast.
Hello, lovely human. How are you?
I'm good, thank you. All the better for a bit of sunshine today. Really excited about this podcast and to get stuck into it. So, for the listeners who might not know you yet, Emma, can you give us a quick intro to who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. So, as you alluded to, my now business is in the D365 market. So, I'm
Mhm.
a test specialist, if you will. So, I specialize in anything from the dynamic stack and beyond, anything ERP, HCM, CRM related, really.
Mhm.
And obviously, the lovely AI that's made its way into our lives. My job is to make sure that everything works before it goes live. So, very much working client side. That has taken up my life for the last 12 years, where I initially became a single person contractor, and now, since retiring from football, over the last 3 years, grown out the business into what is more considered a transformation consultancy, if you will. That's me
Amazing.
in a nutshell.
Yeah, fantastic. So you've built a brilliant career in testing across ERP, CRM, and HCM platforms. How did you first get into the world of software testing?
It's probably quite a really boring story, actually, but I'm sure you'll judge it up in a good way. So essentially, my best mate from home, someone I played football with way back when, she actually segued into software testing herself. And just being her best friend at the time, I kind of saw some of the work she was doing, a few years older than me. She was actually working at Volkswagen at the time and moved into business banking, so Santander and so on, and actually carved out an incredibly illustrious career for herself, still going, but has moved from kind of from real heights into the next kind of batch of heights. She's kind of moving incredibly through her career. She doesn't work in dynamics, but she's worked in, as I mentioned, business banking. But she's always been quite central to testing.
Mhm.
And me being me, I quite liked what she was doing, and I just thought, actually, if you can't beat them, join them. So that was my first introduction to testing. I'd never really considered it as a career. Way back when, I actually wanted to be a barrister. And when
Okay.
I studied it at school, it disappointed me ethically, let's say.
Yeah.
And I actually kind of floated around a little bit while I was playing football. That was kind of my primary goal. Wasn't really too fussed about anything else really when I was playing professionally. And it came kind of mid-20s, and I thought, well, actually, it's not going to look after me financially, so I need to do something else. And I decided to take on the testing part as a career. I ended up joining my first testing role in a permanent capacity at the Open University where I'd worked for a few years before. Self-taught, so I'd already studied the qualifications, the ISTQB, for anyone that knows that, which is the kind of primary understanding into testing, if you will.
Mhm.
And I haven't really looked back. So as part of that, I remember going to my mum and dad and just who were just to set the scene, very northern kind of working class people. And I said, Mum, Dad, I'm going to go contracting. And they thought I'd lost my mind. I can still remember the conversation like it was yesterday. And I was living at home at the time in my early 20s. And obviously everything was kind of geared towards football.
Yeah.
And then it's like, what is this kid on? If you look at me now, I'm covered in piercings and tattoos. My mum and dad had not a single piercing or tattoo between them, and they've given birth to me. And I remember just saying,
Where's home?
so I grew up in the Midlands, but mum and dad are from Manchester. My whole family, pretty much bar me and my sister, hail from Manchester. So
Yeah.
yeah, and I kind of thought about what to do, and I just said, you got to trust me. So alongside the testing, I'd studied the Prince too, so project management side of things, and also the BA, so the international diploma.
Mhm.
And I just thought, right, if I'm going to take a punt, and my mum and dad may financially kind of float me for a hot minute, then I'm going to do as much as I can and not pigeonhole myself, but actually have these three different strands to lean on.
Yeah, that's an amazing story, and I expect that they are very proud now to where you've got, and I hope you've paid them back as well.
Oh my gosh, absolutely. I remember so I mean I'm talking to you of course you know this, but with contracting and with clients, they don't often there's not actually a lot of give and take. So if they want someone, it's often immediately and there's not a great deal of buffer that you're allowed. So
Yeah.
my notice period at the time at the OU was 4 weeks, and I just naturally I didn't have anything to go to. So I said, right, when that first 2 weeks is up, I'm gonna seriously kind of throw everything I've got at this and make something stick. So I focused on my CV. I hit up all the recruiters I knew, and I left the OU on the Friday and started on the Monday. So I was very fortuitous. I consider myself super lucky. I remember
Yeah.
my mum and dad probably still think I'm as stupid as ever. So just
I'm
daft,
sure they don't.
ambitious and daft. You pick.
Yeah. Ambitious, definitely. So you've worked across so many platforms. It's not just Dynamics, is it? It's a number of different systems. What's the common thread that keeps you passionate about testing?
I guess it's just a misunderstanding. I like an underdog, and I feel like testing's a bit of an underdog.
Yeah.
You and I have spoken about this offline, where it's probably not realised for the ROI it can actually return.
Hmm.
People see it as a bit of a tick box, and if we get a UAT done in the last 2 weeks, then brilliant, we've done testing. And actually, there's a whole process that kind of precurses that actually can save the client a ton of money.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. So what do you think makes a great tester regardless of the system?
I would say patience first and foremost, the ability to not accept an answer as verbatim, so to have a
Mhm.
healthy curiosity and to consider what maybe in front of you may not be as it seems. So to actually pursue something and to kind of unravel the thread. I've worked with a real combination of like wonderful functional and technical testers, and I would say those strands are pretty similar and prevalent throughout.
Hmm.
Um, but it really does come down to that curiosity, that kind of the self-teaching, the education, the passion to learn. Like
Yeah.
I've been hands-on since I moved into Dynamics 12 years ago, and I've just not looked back. Like even now when I'm like in a test director, test management role, it's probably times where I need to focus more so on the strategy and just completely come away from it. But I actually love being hands-on.
Yeah.
And kind of people don't realize that with testing that sometimes you're all kind of roles wrapped into one, really, because you have to figure out how to unpick stuff. You have to document things like a BA would. You pick at things and set up config and data like a data analyst or a data migration expert, and also a functional expert. So you kind of, I call us the central midfielder. We're kind of in and amongst it all, and it's you have to preempt what's coming your way because, as you know, and as I just alluded to, people consider it like a real final part of the project, really, and actually
Mhm.
if you're not kind of paying attention, you could have a whole time crunch and a whole budget crunch that you're not prepared for. So, yeah, what I would say to my team, and whether it's my own employees at F17 or whether it's kind of further afield, it's always make sure that you kind of check in your shoulder and know what's coming because it'll kind of bite you at some point.
Yeah. And how do you think that recruiters, because curiosity is obviously something which is quite difficult for us to kind of uncover. So how, when you're interviewing somebody, for example, or if you were using a recruiter, how would you try and sort of delve that out of somebody?
It's a really great question. I think it really speaks to the relationship I would have with the recruiter. It's you and I have been in touch for a little while now, and those recruiters that I'm very comfy with, it's the same. They understand me professionally and personally and what the kind of person we're looking for. As you know, and for anyone that doesn't know, my most of my team and most of my initial hires at Fortitude 17 were former athletes, former teammates
Yeah.
of mine. And I already kind of, they were already pre-qualified in terms of characteristics. Like, for example, I know they can perform under pressure. I know they know how to perform as a teammate. They communicate effectively.
Hmm.
They're just not going to bend under, the constraints that testing is known to produce, if you want. So for me, there is a consistency. Now, being a footballer is not contingent to our hiring platform or hiring process. But there are a lot of transferable skills that have really played a part in my life, certainly as a consultant, and as a business leader. So for me, it's kind of garnering that trust, and from that, you understand the kind of profile that we look for.
Mm. I think for me, obviously when we receive a requirement, we'll the main thing to do is to check the job spec against the CV, right? So you've got all the details on there. But when I'm speaking to the candidate and I'm interviewing them, whether that's via Teams or on the phone, it's just getting them to provide examples as to where they've done that, and then it's how they deliver that. So how they're what the communication skills are like. And I hate to sound airy fairy, but like it's the vibe that I get,
I
and
know,
I
I
can
think it's
generally tell even on the phone if somebody does have that sort of curiosity, or whether, and it's not just about the technical skills, sometimes it's about the attitude and the aptitude as well. So whether that, I think that they could learn that, and then sort of presenting that to a client and saying this is what I feel like, you then go and do your research and speak to them. So yeah, but that's really interesting to know. So curiosity, I'll definitely hold on to that when I next have a test role.
would you
um
would you consider like attitude for every aptitude and attitude, sorry, for every role that you're fielding? So not just like for a tester or a functional consultant. Is that something that's completely consistent across your board?
for me, yeah, I very much, it's, I don't know, I've been doing this for a long time. I've been a recruiter, I think it's more than 15 years now. I don't even want to know. But if I have a bad feeling, I'm rarely wrong. And I've had a situation recently, which I can't go into too much, but a client said to me, I'm always glass half full, and I really respect that. I
Hmm.
said that's great, but I'm rarely wrong. And you just have a feeling. And I sometimes, sometimes we can get it wrong. Of course we can. But yeah, if I tend to have a bit of a bad vibe, there's a reason for it, and I do tend to trust my gut as a
Yeah.
recruiter. But yeah,
But
yeah.
it's
So that,
intuition, isn't it? It's you've been doing this job for a long, long time. It isn't just the kind of airy fairy that you put it to. It's actually years and years of experience and meeting candidates and understanding people. And I would
yeah.
say, like, if you don't mind me saying, your soft skills are excellent. The way that you package something. Sometimes I find that certain conversations in IT or the tech world are very transactional. And
Mhm.
that is something that we as a business try not to be ever. Like we want to build relationships, we want to meet good people, we'll try and attend as many events and actually build meaningful connections rather than just, something that doesn't actually bring any reciprocity or any kind of, natural, organic way of being. So, and I would say the same of you.
It's adding that. Thank you very much.
Well, yeah, no worries.
Um, it's adding that human element to it. And I think with AI, and you mentioned AI earlier, that there are fantastic CVs that are coming through, and they can be tailored to a job spec that I put out there. So it's really just making sure that we interview people and interview them thoroughly to understand whether that is actually something they can deliver on. And particularly in technical roles, it's very difficult for me to. I'm not technical, I'm a technical recruiter, but I have to use Copilot quite a lot to say, like, what does this acronym mean? What does that mean? Which is really helpful. But then, having the ability to say to somebody, okay, well, where is it that you did that? And can you tell me a bit more about that? And you can tell almost instantly if they don't know. Um, so yeah, anyway, we digress. Um, you just mentioned this earlier, actually. So I've got a question here around the misinterpretation of testing. So testing is often misunderstood. What's one thing you wish project teams understood better about the testing discipline?
Crikey, how long have you got?
45 minutes.
That is such a loaded question for me. I actually just had another meeting and I kind of discussed about this at length, and there are a lot of different strands to it. So I think people see it as a tick box rather than how valuable it can be. So people do not realize, and I gave a few brief examples, but people don't often realize that testing can start with static testing, which is documentation reading. So that's how far it is. We don't actually always need a live system. And one of the kind of misconceptions is, you find a bug and it equals the same amount of money if you find it at this point in time. No, the earlier you find the bug, the more money you save. And if you can picture this, if you've got a group of testers, just even one or two that are party to these design workshops that are held, and I'm lucky, like I said, I come from kind of a rounded, holistic background on a program, so I'm very fortunate. But I know how these can go in terms of, people can kind of run down a route, and it's not the SI's fault at all. You can have a client who may be completely new to this whole transformational thing. And you and I work with contractors and consultants that do this for a living, right? So they know what to look for, what to avoid, and how to kind of helpfully steer the client. So for us, you can see a client run in one particular direction, and you just think, if you had some testers involved in that conversation, we could tell you from experience what may work, what may not work, if there's performance issues that we've experienced in the past, and how we can actually start to create test cases so we're not doing it just before you're about to go into UAT. And it's that misconception that everyone thinks testing should be done right at the end of a program, when actually, and I'm not even talking about different methodologies, so like, agile, wagile, waterfall. It's actually just kind of thinking ahead and opening the door for testers so they can essentially be the prophet of doom that we are. Just tell everyone where they're going wrong. So no, I'm
Yeah.
kidding. But it helps steer. So that's kind of part of it. Another part of it is that everyone can test. And it's like, I'm good at maths, but I'm not an accountant, So
Yeah.
it's you ask a BA, an FC, a functional consultant to do some level of testing, and you're already diluting them for, a job that they're paid more than a tester to do.
Yeah.
Um, so it's a real combination, actually, Sarah. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, maybe we'll do another podcast around that if you've got a lot more to give. Um, so what's been the most challenging or rewarding project you've worked on across these systems?
Crikey.
That's
It'll
two,
be down.
that's two questions there, isn't it? Challenging or rewarding?
Yeah, it's there's been interesting stories to tell in all of them, and I need to be mindful what I say, but unfortunately, there was one client we worked with, really robust program, something again, a company kind of really growing and a kind of a rapid rate, and therefore having to evolve their technology architecture to kind of accompany their, rate of growth. But unfortunately, I had to do UAT with a group that had actually already been made redundant. And in the process of that, they had also started retraining their new counterparts that were going to kind of replace them. And in addition, I had to ask them to do UAT. So that was very tenuous situation. That was probably one of the most difficult. And I would describe myself as quite the empath.
Hmm.
So to be working with people and asking something of people with very little return, it was quite difficult. That
Yeah.
was that really kind of appealed to the human element in me.
Yeah.
Um, I would say most of our jobs, I think all of the programs we worked across last year, and I think we were somewhere between 5 and 10 as an outfit for F-17, we ended up looking at brownfield programs only.
Okay.
So it was things were going wrong. Like for example, one of the bigger SIs had decided to kind of include testing. They'd realized that the client, sorry, had realized that the SI had put in only junior people that were remote, whereas, my team were all on site and all available in the UK
Hmm.
and come with experience, right? So you end up kind of sweeping up. And for me, it would be so great to be able to get more greenfield programs and actually carve out the strategy and be able to implement stuff and show people actively how much money can be saved.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And from the
that's
beginning. Yeah.
absolutely, absolutely. And you must see it as well. I know you've got so many good contacts on your book, so to speak. And I know we've had these conversations offline, but you must be able to have good conversations with clients that want something. You just think, actually, from experience, you're probably better to listen and go down this road.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. But it's also the same for me. Finding the greenfield implementations, from the beginning is quite often difficult. So, I'm the same as you going into projects midway, or it might be a rescue, for example. But yeah, it's definitely, and it's a topic that I've discussed before on the podcast as well about having tests come in early. Um, so moving on now to the juicy stuff, which is about football, um, football career and sporting mindset. Um, so when did your journey in the sport begin?
I think I was about 8. So I'd played football recreationally before that. I played at school and I'd played on like a Saturday in like a co-ed. You can tell I'm around Americans, right? Co-ed. In a mixed gender football.
Yeah,
We've done that. And then I ended up playing for Northampton Town. So under 12s when I was about 8 or 9.
yeah,
And that was it. I didn't look back really. So I started playing open age football from the age of 15. So I think you have to be 15 and a half to play for an under 16s club in the UK, which is open age or considered open age, so women's football. And then I played professionally ever since. So yeah, I was very fortunate. I was playing in the FA Cup from when I was kind of 16. I don't know a lot of people do that, but good to kind of work through the rounds and then playing in the top tier of domestic football in the UK and also in Norway. It was just a real adventure, but it also feels like a different person almost, There's too much of it still embedded in me, but it does feel like a lifetime ago. Yeah.
Yeah. And you're being quite modest, aren't you? Because you've played for some really great teams. Um, is it Tottenham you played for?
I did, yeah. Tottenham was one of
Yeah.
my last clubs in England. So I retired after a season in Norway, about three or
Didn't
four
know
years.
about Norway.
No, it's no, I keep cards close to my chest generally. But no, I had
Now
two
I'm
se-
pressuring you.
no,
You don't have to tell me.
no, not even. No, you can ask away. So no, I played in Norway first 2015, and then again, crikey, maybe 2022, 2023. I'm not too sure. It's all a
Yeah.
blur now. But yeah, my last clubs in England were Spurs and Watford. So
Yeah. Cool.
very lucky to be part of the Spurs team that got promoted into the top tier,
Yeah.
where they still sit. And then I think I'd very lucky again to have three stints at Watford and over 100 caps,
Yeah.
domestic caps. So yeah, I feel very fortunate. I played so I moved to Watford initially when I was about 19, 20. So I left my childhood club of Northampton and we were a very new team. So we'd bounced up the leagues. We've been promoted every year and then it became always a bridesmaid instead of a bride. So we were kind of second 2 years on the bounce. And I thought, right, if I want to play professionally as I want to, I'm going to have to move on. And that was tricky because most of the girls that I knew and played for Northampton, we'd grown up with. So all of our
Yeah.
parents knew each other. My dad had coached for a long time, the club, like he's an ex like player as well.
Yeah.
Um, and for us, it was actually, and this is going to sound quite twee, but it was like leaving a family. It's
Yeah.
I'm still in touch with the girls now, but it's that camaraderie that you built, and you go through so much of your formative years with that particular peer group, and then
Mm.
to move on, and I kind of felt quite selfish about that. And yeah, I just haven't looked back. So I stayed at Watford. Luckily enough, played for Fulham, Millwall, Charlton. Had spells at Barnet as well, who were in the second tier. And yeah, and again, for me, it's always been about kind of team accolades rather than anything else.
Mm. Yeah. And what position did you play?
Centre mid, obviously. Yeah, I
You
think
made
there's only one,
reference to that earlier.
absolutely. I think there's only one position to play, right? It's if you're busy and in the mix, then you've got to be centre mid. Like, yeah, I don't think I was West enough to be a goalie. But yeah, I played centre half a few times, sweeper for anyone that's of an older generation. And again, kind of like my dad. But yeah, I'd play anywhere through the spine of the team. What
Yeah.
about you? Because you're missing off the fact that you recently my career's dialed down and yours is picking up.
Yeah, so I decided that so I played as a kid in primary school and secondary school, I believe. And I played with the boys. Like, when you're really young, you play with the boys, and then you got too old, and so you had to then
Not
break
out,
off
yeah.
to the girls. And I can't really remember what happened and why I stopped playing. I was really into running, and I also liked horse riding. So I actually can't remember, but I think maybe I went elsewhere. I can't remember. But yeah, I at the beginning of this year, I decided that I wanted to get back into it again. And I was pretty good as a kid, so I remember. But I've joined this team and I've been training and I've already managed to injure myself and I'm just getting absolutely annihilated. And this is training, right? So it's not actually a match. But I'm pretty awful. So I've said to myself, I'm going to set it a limit because I'm 40 next year. So it was a big thing to go out and do something completely out of my comfort zone, also in a town, and I hope they never listen to this, but they're in Portsmouth and I'm from Southampton. They don't know I'm from Southampton. I've never
Well, they
told
do
them.
now. So congrats.
They
Yeah.
don't know. No, they won't listen to this. It was a big deal to go down there and do it. But yeah, I'm not as good as I thought I was. They just make it look effortless. Like they're so good and like almost like ballerinas across the pitch, like just pop, just into the goal. And I'm like just a headless chicken. And I actually went and watched Southampton at the weekend with my husband. And I don't know if you saw the match, probably not, but Southampton had like a lot of the possession, and it was Charlton, obviously they were playing. Charlton were doing a lot of the running around. And I said to my husband, that's me in the training. I'm the headless chicken doing all the running around because I've got no skill. But we'll see how it goes. We'll
Well,
see.
I imagine you're being very harsh and unkind
No,
to
I'm
yourself.
really not. I'm not. I got floored. like not on purpose, like I've stacked it. And I remember I was like lying on the floor thinking I just should have gone for netball. Like, why have I done this?
No, I think it's so healthy. It's when you told me, it's just so impressive, and I can't imagine getting into football now. Like, I'll be honest.
Yeah,
So, I played for a client last year, and so it was like a six-a-side tournament, but it was with people, females that had never really played before. So maybe some like you at school,
yeah,
certainly not coming out of retirement at this age.
yeah.
Said, "Oh yeah, I'd play whatever," and like I was really looking forward to it. And it was the second year I was with this particular client, and it's one of their gimmicks, one of their things, and I love it. And I'm not even kidding, Sarah. About 2 minutes into the mat, not even, no, probably about 20 seconds into the game, the ball's gone up in the air and I've gone to head it. And obviously, not too many people are probably in that setup have headed a ball before. So old habits die hard, right? So I've gone up for this header, and I don't think health and safety was of a premium, but the girl had on like a cap with a metal buckle.
Oh
So
no.
yeah, within the first 20 seconds, I split my head open. And one of my best friends he's playing in the male side of things, and he looks over and there's an ambulance coming. I'm just like, oh, for God's sake. It's honestly old habits die hard. I texted my mum, I said, look, I said, I don't want to hear it, but just so you know, like I'm off to the hospital in Germany, just and she's like, I'm not going to ask. I know you're playing football, catch me up. So and you just think, okay, well, it's they know I'm an
It is
adult.
quite
Fine.
brutal though, isn't it? Because I really twisted my knee on the third training session,
You're
and
glutton
I
for punishment, you, yeah.
yeah, I proper twisted it. But because it was like my new chums, and I didn't want to seem like a wimp, I pretended I was fine. I wasn't fine. I was like inside,
You're
I was
playing.
screaming. So then I played. So that was the first 10 minutes. I played for a further 80 minutes. With this knee that was absolutely, and now I've not been able to go to training since,
Oh my
basically.
gosh.
So,
Do as I say, not as I do. That's the best advice I can give you.
yeah,
But yeah,
yeah,
it
like,
can be brutal. It's
uh,
my
yeah.
mum and dad have seen all sorts with me. So yeah.
Problem for me is that I spent £90 on a really nice pair of boots, so I can't give up just yet.
No, I believe in you. I think you should just persist, see where it takes you,
Yeah.
and work on the
So what?
glutes.
So and I do need to work on my glutes. Yeah. So what? Why did you stop playing? Why did you retire? Because you keep injuring yourself.
No, I was actually very lucky. So I probably missed about 20 games all career
Wow.
through injury. Um yeah, no, you say wow, but there was a lot of stupidity wrapped up in that. I like sometimes I would skip training because I wasn't just kind of fit for it, and then I'd ready up for a match, a bit like Ledley King actually. Now I think about it, but I just kind of always be available to play, not just like skipping training because I love football. If you'd have met me during my playing career, it was I lived, breathed it, would sulk 5 days after a loss, like that kind of thing, like really typical, breathe it really.
Yeah.
But no, I retired. Like speaking really candidly, I kind of got disillusioned with it really. It wasn't down to injury and or anything like that. I was in a really fortunate position, even though I was in my kind of 30s, I was still in touch with clubs and, had positions offered gratefully and all that good stuff. But no, it's honestly, I think at the time it probably didn't have the safeguarding in place that it needed to. And I don't want to take this podcast into a dark route, but yeah, there were some things that I spoke up on that I didn't quite believe in, and ethically I struggled with.
Yeah.
Um, and sometimes it's difficult, if you're the nail that always sticks out, you're the one that gets kind of hammered, right? And for me, I wouldn't have done anything differently. And having a conversation with my mom after the fact, she's always been very grounded about it. And she said, if you probably have the career that you maybe deserved, you certainly wouldn't be in technology working with your besties and enjoying what you do now and have this kind of career carved out for life. And it took me a long time, especially as like a 20-year-old, some in my 20s trying to learn that life lesson. That's pretty tough to go. And naively, I just thought, if you're good at this, you do this, you do this. I would say that I was pretty well-rounded footballer and probably a bit like I was as a contractor. I want all the facets to my bow, without diluting it.
Yeah.
And for me, it was quite a tough lesson to learn. So I'm probably at the point, a bit like you, 40 next year, where I'm actually very at peace with where I'm at. It's my friends were like, "You will so miss it, Bex. You're immersed in it. You just can't go without it." And actually, I haven't played football since I split my head open last year, and that was only 20 seconds. So yeah, it's a funny one. It's I will say after I retired, I kind of almost had a period of a year where I just let all the kind of injuries and trauma, like physical trauma of my body just come out, and I didn't really like look after myself, my health very well at all, my physical health, sorry. And now I'm in a position where I actually want to train and want to do things on my terms. So it's not always about, lifting X weight because your performance requirements as a player, or running a certain distance for a certain time. It's actually really enjoyable. And
Yeah.
I loved it at the time, but now I'm kind of out of the glass. It's really different for me. Yeah, in a
Yeah.
grateful way.
Yeah. No, that sounds great. So let's have a look at these questions because I think we've covered off quite a few of those. So what did elite sport teach you about discipline, resilience, and performance?
I mean, there's a reason my company's called Fortitude 17.
I was going to ask that. Yeah,
Yeah,
what is that all about?
so Fortitude is really testament to what I felt was pretty critical during my playing career. The ability to continue to bypass whatever comes up and keep going. It's things don't always come your way. And with football, it's unfortunately I've seen friends that are kind of, I mean, I was pretty lucky, but I've seen friends that, may not have had the career they needed to based on a coach. If the coach doesn't kind of like you for whatever reason, it's a bit like project management. If that particular person doesn't like you, or the hiring manager, there's not a lot you can do. You can't get the job, and that was a bit like it at football. So for me, fortitude was pretty prevalent in that. And I always say that on both sides of the coin now. So like, football and sport was a huge factor for me for years. It was a huge factor for everyone around me because my family lived it, my friends lived it. It's like I would miss friends' weddings and all this because we had games, and it wasn't the level where you could just slack off. And being really candid, I'm not the kind of person that would just not play anyway. So Fortitude, and then 17 was my first ever open age shirt as a player, and I scored 17 goals that year. So that number has kind of stuck with me, and that's come to be the name of the business. So Fortitude 17, and then for our new operation that we have over in Dubai in the Gulf, it's called 17 Consultants. So again, same but different, right?
Yeah,
So
great. So you've navigated two very male-dominated worlds, football and tech. What has that experience been like for you?
generally, it's been good. I said earlier, I've been so lucky with having super strong females around. Like
Mhm.
I'm from Irish heritage, so I think we're naturally born stubborn. And then like I come from like n northern hardworking people, so that already sets up half of my DNA, right? And
Yeah.
then equally, and probably more importantly, I've been really supported by the males in my life. So in sport, some of the best coaches I've had have been male,
Hmm.
and some of the worst, ironically, have been female. My dad is probably my biggest fan. He's again, I'm always grounded. But again, I think even kind of the last couple of years of my playing career, and I'm in my 30s, and my dad's getting into his 60s. He was following me up to Sunderland or Newcastle for a game, and no small feat, and things
Proud
like that.
dad.
Yeah, I just carry it with me, and my mum too,
Yeah.
and everything kind of was wrapped around that. But I've been very lucky in tech as well. So Lionel Wilson, I know you know him very well.
I do.
He is
Yeah.
a wonderful character, and I think so. I met him initially in a work capacity, and he is just that incredible blend. I always say with football, you rarely get a great coach and a great manager. Well, Lionel's the kind of tech equivalent. He is that
Yeah.
wonderful functional and technical guy. And to boot, he's a wonderful chap. He's a
Yeah.
really, really good guy. And then some others as well. So one of my mentors is he lives in Australia, but he's like has a quite high post in quality assurance and quality engineering. And again, he's very pro women. So he works a lot on the cultural philosophy of businesses and tries to kind of um like improve, I suppose, general concepts. And this as a female founder, sometimes you have to knock a bit harder to get certain doors open, right?
Yeah. I think so. And I love meeting men who are advocates for women in business. I think that's really, really important. And I'm sure Lionel will love that he's got a shout out in the podcast today. And he's lovely. So what advice would you give to women entering either field today? excuse the pun.
No, nicely put. Just don't look back, I guess. It's apparently I'm meeting you with terrible sayings. No, just don't look back. It's I think so many times, and I see this a lot in kind of every walk of life. Like I'm a part of female founder groups and things like that, and I feel very fortunate that I've always kind of had a natural self-awareness, but a self-confidence too. Like I'm not scared to do things. Um, where I trust my kind of not just mindset, but my abilities too and my experience. Like I'm not scared to kind of lean on that. And I see other people that aren't quite as fortunate and that kind of do second guess themselves, and particularly people that have had children, like women that have had children and are kind of coming back into the workforce. I can see that kind of stutter of a step where they're actually kind of, am I ready to do this? I actually don't think there's a time where you are truly ready. I don't know if you agree, but I think it's about really just having the courage to forge forward in spite of all those things, that kind of bravery. And I think as a woman, particularly that's been in like any male-dominated arena, you've already kind of won half the battle. You've already done the hardest thing. And I would say that on, just in reference to the last question, some of the best results I've seen are by the certain chaps I've spoken about that are championing women that do see value. So, for example, the quality engineer chap that I mentioned, he speaks to women being the better testers, and
Okay.
people can scrap me after, that's fine. But he said it. But it's just about opening doors and that kind of advocacy. It goes a long way. It's like I don't know if you saw anything with the US women and men's ice hockey teams, any of that kind of
No.
furore that's come up. But it really matters.
Yeah.
It's one thing to be part of the conversation, but it's a second thing to actually have the doors opened for you. And
Mm,
for women, it's for us to walk through, right?
yeah. And I definitely think that women have imposter syndrome, and not to say that men don't have it
Mhm.
too, because I'm sure they do. But I think in particular, when women have had children and you are kind of, when you come back into work, you are kind of on the back foot because you've taken that break, but you're also trying to juggle home life, and
Right.
men are also trying to juggle home life too. And I'm not saying that isn't the case, but I think that women, you mentioned empathy earlier, women are more empathetic and more care that biologically we're the caregivers, so I think we naturally take on quite a lot in the home,
Mhm.
which is kind of natural to us. We're also going out to work, and, if you're crazy like me, so business 9 month off baby, um which I totally underestimated, by how difficult that was going to be. um yeah, so it's good advice to yeah, just don't hold back and just get yourself out there. But I suffer with confidence, and it's great to hear that you don't. But yeah, I quite often second guess myself, and I'm like, oh God, am I doing this right? Am I doing that right? And I think that going to the women's groups, like
Mhm.
the networking, really really helps.
Mm.
So if there's anybody listening to hear that gets imposter syndrome or is struggling, definitely getting yourself into these the women's groups is great.
Mm.
I'm doing an International Women's Day event soon as well, which I want you to
Very
come
good.
to, Emma. Maybe we should get you to speak at that, actually. You could,
I'd be up for it, absolutely. Yeah,
yeah, you could
you'd
impart
help me.
some wisdom, I'm sure. I'm
If I've
sure.
not burnt your podcast into the ground, then yeah, absolutely.
I'm sure it won't be. So moving on to leadership and growth. So
Mm.
you've obviously moved into more senior roles now. What does leadership look like to you in a testing context?
What a good question. I would say that I've always been a leader of sorts. I'm autistic, recently diagnosed autistic, and
Okay.
um, I think so. Growing up, being again very open, I always had people say, "Oh, you just don't like seniority, or you just don't like this." And actually, what I've come to understand is that I have an issue with things that aren't efficient. So it's never been about me questioning someone's authority. That's not it at all. Men, women, whatever. I'm a big advocacy for equity. So for above what I consider equality, everyone has the same option and the same opportunity. And I think for me, it was learning how to kind of harness that. So yeah, and it's been really interesting. I'll be really honest. So as a player, I was very fortunate to captain quite a few of my teams. And growing up, you see, so for example, one of my one of my idols is Roy Keane. And if anyone knows him on off the pitch, he's a pretty outspoken chap. And the way he would lead on the pitch, it's that kind of saying what now, if you can see it, you can be it. And I essentially would at times as a 12, 15, 20-year old would become Roy Keane. I would get after people on the pitch. And I always thought I was fair because it was I would always be how I would be okay with someone treating me. And actually it was a kind of learning period where I realized you're probably not being as fair as you think. Some people may not have that capacity, whatever. You're actually, whilst you think you're judging on any equal, scale, you're actually not. So for me, I would say leading, and even now with my team, it is an ever evolving landscape. Like it's
Yeah.
nothing is ever solved. I do not think, even in 80, at 80 years of age, or, if I live to be that long, I just can't see me not learning how to be a better leader.
Yeah.
I take solace in the fact that I would say I'm a good person. I'm well intended and I get things wrong, like everyone. But I think it's just how you address that. Like one thing that's important to me is always showing up for the team.
Yeah.
And whether I'm a captain of a sports team or my own team, like I'm very mindful not to put my current consultants into programs that are not a fit for them.
Hmm.
Not just because it's, a part of the brand that I've worked on for years to try and kind of build and cement, I guess. But actually, I don't want to do that to people that have trusted me enough to, come work for us.
Yeah.
And I think as a test consultant, one of the hardest things is that you will always kind of be under some level of scrutiny because you often are the only spokesperson on behalf of the client, making sure that everything is fit for purpose. So I always say our allegiance is to the solution, therefore the client. Even if we have a wonderful SI developer friend that brings us into the program, we obviously honor the ways of working and that relationship. But actually, when it comes to testing and what that looks like, our duty is to raise anything we find to the client. Now, that doesn't mean we can't tip the wink to the partner and say, look, this has come up. We need you to address it.
Hmm.
But equally, like I said, our allegiance really is to the client. So for me, I always want to make sure that we have that kind of leadership in place so that people, one, feel comfortable to manage upwards and manage down. That's really important to me. But two, also to tell me what they need from me. So I'm, like I said, a big fan of like justice and equity. And if someone's kind of asking for me and the way I'm demanding from them, I am completely okay with that. And that's what I really hope for my current team, my S17 team. We just want to continue to build. And I mean, for example, one of the team, my first ever hire came to me and said, actually, I'm really intrigued in financial, sounds like a burglar. No, functional consultancy. So she's like, because she's been tinkering around with stuff. She's like, I really, really have got a taste for it. So I said, okay, let's just see what we can do. And, now we're kind of looking at training plans for her to move into that. So I don't know that there's a real kind of obvious answer, but I would just say be able to be managed up and down and advocate for your team, to be there and not to pay Lionel any more kindness, but he's a wonderful buffer. He
Yeah.
understands the program and he will really kind of put a lot of stress on his back in order to allow his team the freedom that they need to succeed.
Yeah. Okay. So, what's the biggest lesson you've learned from leading teams or mentoring others?
Don't do it. No, I'm just kidding. I think I think today I've probably trained 12 to 15 people to become testers, so from scratch. And I've loved it. Like I really love that training element. For anyone that knows me, patience is not always my virtue. But it's so humbling. Some people have kind of fallen out of love with it, and I understand. And others have just grown to love it in the same nerdy way I have.
Yeah.
And it's you learn so many lessons. You get so much wrong. I work with my sister actually, and she is formerly an electrical wholesale manager, area manager, very, very successful, is able to turn businesses from like negative balance into very positive, profitable businesses. Um, and watching the way she manages, I would say I'm more of a leader. So I've acquired management skills, but she's very excellent at a one-to-one relationship. I've learned so much from her actually.
Yeah.
And the way she builds relationships and the way my dad used to as a coach. And then I see people like Lionel and others and so on. it's honestly just so humbling. I would say that like I'm just a continuous student, really.
Yeah. So you kind of like to lead from the front.
Absolutely, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely. I always
Rather
say,
than telling people what to do.
right,
You're, yeah.
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 I would never kind of dictate to people without having walked the walk myself. So
Yeah.
I always kind of say, I use the term in the trenches.
Yeah.
So with my team, I'm not going to kind of order anyone to do anything that I've not done or won't do. And
Yeah.
that's really important to me. Whether it's right or wrong, that's just, I suppose, quite critical to who I am.
Yeah. So, I saw on LinkedIn, and we've not talked about this, but saw on LinkedIn that you're writing a book. Can you
Guilty.
tell us? Can you tell us? That's very exciting. Can you tell us a bit about the book?
I can indeed, yeah. So it's ironically, and it's almost like we planned this, but we definitely didn't.
We didn't.
It's kind of a meeting of the two worlds, like my lessons learned from my sporting career into a business career.
Mhm.
It's really, yeah, I suppose I'm a big fan of all sorts of literature, but in particular self-help books. And it's
Yeah.
not quite that, but it's kind of a lessons learned situation. Now, very, very much in the kind of infancy. But the plan is that it'll be finished this year. So I'm signed with a publisher now, and I'm writing. But yes, it's very much kind of new to market, I guess. Yeah,
That's
I think we
really,
should bring
really
that
cool.
up. It's
So what themes or messages are you hoping readers are going to take away from the book? I mean, you've not written it yet, so but I'm guessing you've got some ideas.
Oh, I could just make it up. No, I'm kidding. It's honestly, it's kind of mostly what we spoke about.
Yeah.
A lot of the themes and threads of the questions that have come up are pretty consistent. People go, "What on earth is the crossover, the parallel between football and testing?" And the discipline, the ability to work under pressure, all the stuff I've spoken about. That keen eye for detail, the hard yards when no one's looking, all that kind of stuff. There is like more of a crossover than people imagine. And I believe that will be the way for not just any sport, but like even having a baby, like coming back to work, how you juggle your time. You could apply that to so many different walks of career, right?
Hmm.
And for me, it's always been something I've spoken about. So the more I speak about testing, the more I speak about football, it's kind of becoming one and the same. And I actually just thought, I've always wanted to write a book. That's something that's been on my life list ever since I was little. And I think eventually, and here we are, it's coming to fruition. But I will certainly share a little taster as it comes up.
Amazing. I think it's, for anybody that's in sport, it is very difficult to get to the top and to earn the money that you need to money, and especially for women's football, for example, it's kind of having that backup. And I know I read something the other day because our little one, he's 3, and he really likes football, and Mike's obviously like, he's going to be professional, and I'm like, well, we do need to think of backups. So I think it would be really a really good read for people to, yeah, just have that backup career that you can actually work alongside. And being a contractor, you can pick your own hours, you can, yeah, manage it in your own way. So I think it would be really interesting for a lot of people in the tech world, but also in the sporting industry as well. So
Well,
I
thank you.
will,
I
I
think
will,
you're right.
I'll get marketing that for you on LinkedIn.
You're a diamond. Kickbacks are coming. Don't worry.
Oh,
Only
okay,
for
yeah.
HMRC. No,
So you obviously we talked about the book, but what's next for you? You mentioned obviously this, was it the UAE or Dubai? So yeah, what's next? What's on the agenda for the
Um,
next 12 months?
it's probably more of the same. I know that's really boring and not something to get teeth into, but it's really trying to expand and get people to understand the value of testing. I know that sounds like a real sad sack thing to say, but it's true. I just see so much value where it could be added in programs, in businesses, and I see some of it come to fruition. Like for example, or I've worked with a client in the past, and we created a testing shared services because of the value that we did in an ERP program. And they said, okay, we appreciate this. We're going to kind of implement it further on. And with testing, one of the things we look at is entry and exit criteria. So before we go into a phase of testing, are we essentially in a fit place to do so? And then I saw that kind of criteria and that gateway checkpoint stuff come into place for more of the PM vibe. So actually, it's kind of implementing quality and control across the board, which is music to my ears. But it would be more of that actually. It's kind of fighting the good fight for testing. Sounds like a really poor Star Wars book, but yeah, it's. I think that's kind of point number one. Obviously, you mentioned the book and growing the business and expanding in Dubai. more of the same. I'm lucky that I've got a few speaking events lined up in Slovenia and Las Vegas around dynamics. So very, very lucky to do those. But I think it's just making sure that my team are looked after, building the business, making sure that people have space to grow, and yeah, working with decent clients if you know any.
Yep. Yeah, always looking for new decent clients. Um, so for anyone listening, and this is going to be the last couple of questions now, you'll be relieved to know. So for anyone listening who's considering a career in testing, what's your biggest piece of advice?
Ask. Don't worry about getting everything right. And it kind of comes back to that kind of confidence point we spoke about a few questions ago. Just put your foot forward. If you make a mistake, that's okay. It's no one's perfect. And I really hate these sayings and I keep iterating them all over. But the more you make progress, the more you kind of focus on activity, let's say, or action, the better the outcome. It becomes easier if you can read something like, I don't know if you read anything like Atomic Habits or any other book, and it really just says essentially commit to 5 minutes of something and everything else will kind of snowball.
Mhm.
And it's just kind of creating those neural pathways. Like I'm a big fan of like learning about neuroplasticity and how you can improve yourself and all that good stuff.
Yep.
And I would say that if anyone truly is interested in well, testing, first reach out to me and the team. We'd be more than happy to have a conversation. But don't be shy and getting stuck in. There's a lot of good information available via the ISTQB site. More and more, there's a lot coming up. Obviously, AI gives a good nudge in the right direction. Um, but I would say, yeah, reach out to some trusted parties.
Yep. Amazing. So finally, how can people connect with you or follow your journey?
I'd probably say that I'm most active on LinkedIn.
Yep.
So we have our company page, which I can kindly share at the end, and my personal page as well. So we do put out a lot of good information around transformation programs, lessons learned, and we're very regular with posting. But if you ever want a chat, I would say that I don't bite and I'm pretty affable. So yeah, don't be shy. And thank you, Sarah.
Great. Thank you so, so much for coming on. I hope that everybody has enjoyed today's episode. I'm sure that they have. For everybody listening or watching, depending on which platform you're on, we are on Spotify, YouTube, and you can also catch us now on my website as well. Do follow Source and Connect on LinkedIn and myself, and also Fortitude 17 and Emma Beckett on LinkedIn. So thanks again, Emma. It's been amazing.
A pleasure is entirely mine. Thank you so much. And kudos to all you're achieving post-pregnancy and with the new business. Well done.
Thank you.